Now, good news, bad news. Good news that probably I'll finish before that. Bad news, I might be wrong. So. They told you that TOC is about scientific approach to the management. And like with sales, there's always a question, is management an art? Which means either you're born with this God-given spark, or you don't. Or is it a science, which means there are some rules you can learn, you can repeat it, and it might work. Good question, which means I'm not going to answer it. I will leave it to you. But I want first to demonstrate what they mean when they say management or scientific approach to management. You are coming from different backgrounds, from different companies. By the way, I was told quite a lot of you are coming from startups, from very small companies. Who is coming for either small company, really small, which means, let's say, less than 10 people, or even less than that, or a startup? Just raise your hands. Good. Impressive. I mean, really something to be proud about, because startups or small companies are those which, in due course, probably will become big, great, leading companies. But because I didn't know where you're coming from, I will give you a list of problems. What's characteristic of those problems? They happen everywhere. The big difference between really good company and a lousy one is the question of magnitude. But they exist everywhere, wherever a group of people is working together. What are the problems? Some people are frustrated. Happens. CYA is a short for cover your ass, but I didn't want to write it because the material is then distributed to you and your children can read it. But you know what this kind of mentality is? You should make some movement with your head, with your body, so I know first that you hear me, second that you understand what I say, and third, you actually try to answer me. So you know what I mean. Yeah. Oh boy, you are very frigid. You should work on it. Okay. Sometimes the company's measures don't contribute to its goal. For example, company's goal is very simple, to make money, and the measure is through it people are being evaluated how long you stay, and people don't go home until the boss is going home. Do you think it truly contributes to making money of this company? It does? No. It doesn't? But if that's the measure, well, I will comply. Sometimes when there is a problem, people have tendency to blaming each other. Sometimes even they feel what they do is plainly stupid, but they still do it. I remember once it was arrest in the army, and they told me, you know, to paint the trees with white paint, which of course I did because they told me to. And then I asked why we do it. Well, I don't tell you all the story. It was simply stupid. And what I did, I continued to do it because I had no other choice. Ellie used to repeat the phrase, "Tell me how you measure me, and I will tell you how you will behave." Which means, if sometimes measures force you to do things which are, that's a nice way to put it, counterproductive, you'll still be doing it. Some people become apathic in the company. They finish the hours, they go home, and they don't care too much. Sometimes there is politics in the company. Sometimes there is a mistrust between levels or functions. You know the standard approach. The guys on the top are not so smart. The guys downstairs, they're really lazy. And my colleagues, well, I don't want to talk about it, but not a big deal. You realize who is the only person in the company actually worth something. Okay. Sometimes the evaluation of the people is quite arbitrary, not according to their contribution to the organization. Probably you know the saying, you have done it and you reported, you have done it. You have done it, you haven't reported, you haven't done it. You haven't done it, you reported, you did. Well, it's like 50% you have done it. And then how they evaluate you. Some people are over-evaluated, some under-evaluated. Look at this list. How many of you have seen at least one of those symptoms in your company? We had a lot of liars in the room. All the people who haven't raised their hand, I don't believe it. Or they don't work. One should deal with the problems. You agree? Those problems in left unattended, it's not good. You should say yes, you're right. I mean, try to keep some dialogue here. You agree with me that you should deal with those problems?
Yes.
The people in the back, you agree we should deal with the problem? So why aren't you saying so? Look, it's very late and I'm really tired. Okay. How we deal with problems? Let's say, what I have to press in order to hit this. They're frustrated? Well, I don't know. Probably you should bring some organizational psychologists who will deal with the people. In more extreme cases, it should be not psychologists, but psychiatrists. I don't know. You have problems with apathy? We do some motivational activities. We can do those, correct? The best is going on, everybody for a trip in the woods, do some games and so on. It's a lot of fun, not that it helps the company, but at least people enjoy. Less apathy. What else can we do? People are evaluated arbitrarily? No. Give, feedback to every person on their performance. My younger brother was working in some big company, and I remember he was boss to 5 people, to 10, to 20, to 50, to 100, and even more. And this company, they have a rule every 6 months. We are sitting with every worker, giving him feedback, telling how he's doing versus what was agreed 6 months ago, charting what he will do in the future. And I remember calling him, was always the same. The secretary would say, no, he's busy, he's sitting with somebody. And I would ask, oh, he's giving today feedbacks? And she would ask, how do you know? I couldn't say that, but the guy was doing nothing else because so many people every 6 months, but at least nobody could say it's arbitrary. No, it's for a reason. And so on and so on. If we deal with each of those problems, well, we have 11 of them, you have this amount of time, this 100% of time will be divided, each of those issues will get, let's say, 9%. That's one approach. Another approach is saying, those problems are not isolated. They don't exist as independent phenomena. They are probably connected. Connected with logical connections of cause and effect, of cause and result. I will try to show you what might be such kind of connections. Because otherwise you will come to think the least. You will come to very unflattering conclusions. That people are bad. Let's bring better people, and so on, and so on, and so on. The problem will not go away, but at least we'll have the good feeling we are not living it. We actually are doing something. The fact that there are no results, that means we should do even more. But there's another approach to it. How do we measure people? By the way, why are we actually measuring people? Okay, the deal is the following. When I ask a question, I usually answer the question, and I am happy with the answer. When it's a question of character, I'm every person, so a lot of things cause me to be happy. But if I ask a question and I shut up, it doesn't happen a lot. That means you have to answer. So why do we start again? Why do we measure people? Why there are measures for people?
To help them understand situation. To help understand situation. To help them to form.
Okay, so we can publish every quarter. This quarter we lost 2 million. The next one, well, if it's 2.5, which means it's worse, only 1.5, it's better. Why do we measure the people, not the company? Pardon me? To motivate them. It's a nice word. I was looking for this word because, you see, if I was talking about the stick, it would be really making a bad impression. Yes? Company is the people, yes. But, wait a minute, what do you mean company is the people? It's a necessary component, if you want. It's the most important component, even though you should be suspicious. Why? Because the situation, when it's bad, if it's such a big value to the company, why are the people the first you let to go if it's the company and so on? Okay, so next time I ask questions, they will use the mic. It's a better thing. Okay, I will ask this question. We want the people creating measures, use them in order that the people measured will behave according to me, creating the measures, want. It's, as you said, to motivate them the right thing. Which are the right thing? The one that I define as the right. Okay, so if people adhere to the measure, they're okay. If you don't, well, you have to correct. Sometimes, as we've said, the measures don't contribute. But given this, people will conform to measures, even if they might be counterproductive. What does it mean, intuition? I mean, it's a word used often and sometimes in a strange, mystic way, he got this intuition, or the feminine intuition. To me, intuition is a very simple thing. It's the summary, the sum of my life experience in particular area, which is wonderful. Why? Because in this particular area, if I have enough experience and I'm honest with myself, it enables me to reach to right decision very fast. That's the big advantage of intuition. You make right decision fast. The problem with intuition is it's very difficult to communicate, because if somebody will ask me, why have you reached this decision? Look, I'm not going to tell them the story of my life. How many decisions I've made, some of them right, some of them wrong, until I came to make this kind of decisions, which means makes for a very good decision, very fast, very difficult to communicate. But usually the intuition is good. So what do you think will happen to people who have good intuition? They know what's right, what's wrong, and they are forced by the measure to conform to things which they believe they are stupid. You know what will happen? They will feel what they do is wrong, what it will cause. Look, I believe that this statement is very important. When you ask somebody, who are you? Quite often he will identify them, but what they do at work. An engineer, a programmer. Yes, he will mention also he's a husband and a father and a Manchester United fan. But profession, or what they do at work, will take first place. What do you think will happen to people who have good intuition, feel what they do is stupid, and they really want satisfaction at work? First, it will deeply frustrate them. How people react to frustration? In many ways. Some become apathic. They will say, look, I will do what they want, I just want to go home, and then, well, to deal with my hobbies. Some people are not so passive. The active people, their frustration sees an outlet. It takes different forms. When there is a failure, they will blame the entire world. And then, of course, instead of creating a united organization, builds walls of mistrust. But there is even bigger problem. When you do something stupid, don't expect for good results. Failure is looming. So whenever I have to do something stupid, I want to know who says so. I prefer that the order or the instruction will be given in writing, preferably it being signed. Why? Because when there is a scandal later on, I want to know nobody will blame me. I was simply doing what I was told. And that's again during the campaign. But there is even, on a personal level, even worse thing. I would expect that in every company, everybody will be judged. Is he or she contributing to the goal of the company, or is not? Not according to some artificial measures. What happens if I do the right thing, but my company measures when I go home? I have a problem. At 17:00, I have a small switch in my head which goes from on to off. I don't like working a lot. I mean, that's the reason that my presentation here is creating a big challenge for me, because I'm not used to work so late. But I believe I contribute to my company. But if somebody is looking at the hours I'm putting, he says he's not contributing to the company. I believe I am undervaluated in my company. That, of course, contributes to my frustration. Maybe I will decide, I don't see my future here, I will do really the minimum which is must. But once again, what do active people do? You know, if you want to advance in the company, there are only 3 simple strategies how you go up the organizational ladder. There is the naive approach. Tell everybody how good you are. All the day long, you are so successful. You know, propaganda of success. There is the nasty approach. Tell nasty stories about all your competitors. And of course, there is the integrative, the synthetic approach. Do both things at the same time. Which means politics and so on and so on. And then, of course, also basically ruins the unit of the organization. I put blue color on all the statements here which are having arrows going out of it, but no arrow is coming into it. You see, you don't need motivation as long as the engines creating the frustration exist. You don't tell me you are overvalued, undervalued as long as the wrong measurement exists. Which means if you want to correct the situation, you should realize most of the problems don't exist by themselves. They are unavoidable result of what's at the bottom of this structure. This particular structure is called current reality tree, and is one of the tools DOC is using in analyzing any situation. And the question is what you want to do. I mean, some of the things you don't want to change. That the intuition is good, that people are looking for satisfaction at work, you don't want to change. Well, this one, even if you want to change, I don't believe you will be successful. So the question is what you have to do. One approach, I want to start with an approach you probably would not address first. You know what? Let's start measuring people. What do you think about this idea? We are not measuring people. But how we reward them? Oh, 2 answers are coming into mind. Everybody is getting the same. You heard about the systems. Everybody is getting paid or rewarded equally. You should say, yes, we read the books. Or maybe even better, everybody is getting according to their needs. How do you call such a system? Good. Okay, some of you are reading books. Good. Very good. Yes, you don't like this approach? That means, if you don't like this approach, you know, in Israel we are having collective establishment called kibbutz, at which everybody is getting equally, everybody contributing his share, I mean, according to his abilities, and strange as it might sound to you, they're very happy there. But you don't like this approach. That means you should be on guard. Maybe the measurements which worked wonderfully yesterday, they're not good today anymore. But it was just an example. What does it mean? Scientific approach to management. Realizing that there are connections, of course, and effect between different phenomena in the organization. As I am lucky, I'm the last one, so a lot of things I wanted to say, other people say it much more eloquently, nicer, and probably with much better English, so I will just repeat what they will say. It's enough, it's not enough to know the problem. You need to know what's the solution to this problem. How can you be sure that the solution actually works? Because some of the solutions bring results. I mean, it's better stay as it is instead of changing into something worse. Sometimes the idea is really good, but there are so many obstacles. There's always shortage of time, people, space, money, and the list just goes on, which means it's a wonderful idea, but in the current situation, well, you probably won't implement it. You heard about the resistant to change? Two scenarios. Well, they come to you and they say, you know, we are doing some changes, and you are alone occupying this big room. We'll put another 4 people in your room. The second change, well, you got a company car, it's not healthy. Start using bicycle. How much we pay you? We cut it into half. What do you think how most of the people will react to it? No way. Scenario number 2. You are sitting with 5 people in the room. Somebody like you go into a room of your own. In winter, riding bicycles, have a company car. How much we pay you? You are worth twice as much. How most of the people will react to it? It's the same change, just the sign was different, yes? One was minus, the other was plus. Which means, do people always resist to change? No. They do? They don't? Maybe they're just smart, I mean. Okay. You of course realize what's our logo. You see the question mark there? If you look very carefully, you see the exclamation mark built in. I will just ask questions, leave the answers to you. Okay. The first question is, what do we want to change? What's the core problem? The second question is, what's the solution to this problem? Those two, I believe, are relatively easy. Why? Because smart person is capable of answering both questions alone using, well, what God gives them to put on their shoulders, using their brain. However, it will not change reality one bit. Why? Because thinking about something doesn't change reality. Actions change it. How to cause the change? Well, in order to cause the change, probably you cannot do it alone. You need other people assistance, guidance, cooperation, which means to introduce change is not an easy thing to do. Usually, we call to this PUGI, process of ongoing improvement, assuming you have solved one problem, a new one, a new constraint will pop up. Ellen warned you, be careful when you change your constraint. Why? Because it's a completely new game, and maybe, just maybe, you are not so good at it. Because if constraint changes, it's a new reality. I was lucky. I asked the organizer in our scenarios, what are the problems of salespeople in small, mainly in small bus and medium businesses in Lithuania, hoping they will not answer me. I will tell them without that I cannot do my presentation. And I have one day off in the beautiful Vilnius area. They sent me a list. I still don't believe that it's a real one, but they sent me a list, and they swear by God that actual people told them those are their problems. And what can I say? I still have my doubts. In many small and medium businesses, the same salespeople do the following things. They do sales to new customers. They do sales accounting. Even when needed, they do customer support. And there I told you, the person that spent so much time with us selling us, we expected not just to disappear and to leave it to other people. In small firms, you don't have clearly defined sales pipeline processes, defined by steps, by the duration. There are no clearly defined roles. Whoever is picking up the telephone in trying to sell whatever you sell. They don't really have sales management. They have sales. People are really autonomous in small firms, which means you do whatever needs to be done, which is wonderful. For salespeople, the basic tool to measure their performance, you simply, well, if it's organized and planned activity, they have what they call quotas. What we expect you to sell. Above it, it might be a bonus. Below it, we're having our doubts if you are the right person, which means we do something to force them to meet their quotas, which causes the people to hurry up to close deals by the end of the term. And you know, haste is not a good advisor. Either you lose deals, either you give a huge discount, and we have heard what does it mean to give discounts, not even a huge discount. But tell me how we measure it. Don't be surprised in their behavior. As a rule, whenever a salesperson is approached by the client, which already have signed the contract, he needs urgent something. You do it, which means no matter what you planned in your sales area, you first assist the client. Sometimes they actually do the work somebody else was supposed to do, but it's urgent, we have shortage of people. I've written those things because they were on the list sent me from Lithuania as a problem, which means even though we're planning some meetings in order really to put our heads together, it doesn't happen as it should be. Lithuania is a really small market. I live in a country a little bigger, but the only way to keep the level of income that we are used to is by exporting, which means you need a large market. So what do? You try to enter the new markets. Be it big, US, very big, India or China. They work autonomously, basically on their own, but it's hardly can you see a large return on this investment. No results. And of course they always complain the same. Our product, our effort, our offer, our service is lacking something which will make it unique. They're not happy. they submit proposals to the prospects, usually they are schematic. By the way, who is dealing here with sales? Raise your hand. Okay. What do we do when we have to give a new offer? We survey our old offers. What looks most similar to a new client? We open the file. It happened to some of you that you forget the first name. You want to be personal, and you still left the first name from the previous letter. That's what I mean, schematic. And you are basing on it what might work, not on the particular value. You just want the client to answer. By the way, when there are the meetings, they are quite ineffective. The bottom line, the hit ratio, it's quite low. When I have heard that on the presentation here, it was Lisa, I believe, that had shown that the hit ratio, which means the success ratio, have moved from 10% to 40%, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, and once again, usually we are dealing with those things, but in separation, I would like to show the analysis I have done. Okay, so salespeople do everything. Even not only in the sales, but also on service delivery. And that means that they will react to whatever requests come from the client, because that's life. Which means they're clearly overloaded. They do everything. By the way, in small firms, they believe it's like the laws of Newton. It's a law of nature, and people must be always overloaded, so they don't think it's strange. They are autonomous. The meetings take too long, are irregular. So what can we expect from overloaded people working in such an environment? The most important thing, to give an offer, I'm not talking even about a mafia offer. I'm not talking about excellent or unrefusable offer, but a decent offer. They don't have the time. Which means they give offers based upon personal impression, what might work. Effective business proposition must have a real value from the prospective customer. Why should he or he spend money on something it's not having a real value? Which means the offers we are giving are not attractive enough. When they read it, this wow factor doesn't exist. If the offer is lousy, hit ratio cannot be high. The question is, where's all this stemming from? My guess was that one of the statements on the list explains all the bottom statements from here to here. There is no real sales management. There are sales. There is no sales management. Additional aspects we have mentioned. The export regs, lousy results. They feel the offer or the product or the service is not attractive enough. The proposals always are as they are. So not only the domestic market, the hit ratio is low. If you are not a attractive on the foreign market, you cannot have good results on the world market. Measures are very effective tools in directing human actions and behavior. We have seen it on the previous three. And the standard way, the monthly, quarterly quotas, are the main measurement for the salespeople, which explains why they work like crazy. You all know what we call a hockey stick phenomenon. F of month, end of quarter, end of the year. We must close deals. We must show results to the owners, to the stock exchange, to ourselves. As we all know, haste or pressure are not good advisors. Quite often, they deter or delay the prospects. Ellen was talking about multitasking. Salespeople do it as if there is no other way at all. Sorry. And once again, when you ask where does it all come from, we treat sales very seriously. Sales management is not a term we use even to hear at all. There are sales. I beg to differ. Famously, Ellie used the following explanation regarding the difference between the marketing and the sales. The marketing people were those, with the seeds of corn on the banks of a river, of a lake, will throw it around, and then when the flock of geese or ducks will land, will come the salesman with a gun and look which one is really fitting his spot. And if he done the good job, he will get the duck. So we are talking about two very different functions. Marketing, we have heard from Nerys about it. They have to cause the prospective market, what they call the target market, to know about our product or service or offer, and to cause them to want it. Salesman has to translate this will into a deal. Simple. Why it matters? Nerys answers the questions. If the sales is good, which means the sales department work very well. If they are not, marketing is lousy. Let's talk about the selling process. I will show you two standard. Any book on sales will show you the same, so we'll do it very fast. If you are selling a physical product, how it works. The most important step, selection. What segment? Companies? People? Countries? Areas? Where you want to act? When leads are coming, it's very important to do what you call qualification. There are some leads you don't want to waste your time, even if they're approaching you. Once you have the what we call qualified leads, those worth our time, attention, and effort, you should know what are the needs of the client. If your offer has to have some value, you need to do what we call needs assessment, and then put it in writing, send to the client to see if we are on the same page. Usually, he will correct you. If he does it, wonderful. The fish is biting. Otherwise, he will not even answer you. Correct it. Then, I'm talking about physical product. Show him how it actually works. A machine, a system, a plant, whatever. Then, everybody is different. We are unique and special. Put a solution proposal which relates to the needs, you know, from step 3. Showing how it might work for you. In computer system, what do you do? Give me your data, I will show you how you should, what? Run your warehouse, plan your production. Quotation submission, telling how much it will cost, what are the terms of payment, how it will be done. And he will say, I don't want to buy your company, all I need is just machine you're producing, negotiation, closing. In goods which are not physical goods, you still do most of the things in a similar way. You just don't have to produce, make demonstration of production and so on. It's a process. When you say a process, a word we all know, I propose the following definition was the process. A clearly defined sequence of dependent steps, which means until one was done, don't start the next one, leading to predefined goal. That's what sales is. You have heard about the 5 focusing steps, I don't have to repeat it. But if you have a process, you should ask yourself, what's the constraint of the process and how to exploit it, and even more important, how subordinate everything to it. Just to remind you what is the process. Reality, or if you want, life itself shows that when you move along the steps, you are losing some. For some of them, find it's not suitable for their needs. For others, you find you are not sure you want to do it. And basically, you put into this funnel, or your qualified leads, and you hope you will get out of it, depending on your hit ratio. If the hit ratio is 1, it's 20%, which means 1 to 2.5. On every 10 qualified prospect, you will get 4 deals. If it's 1 of 10, out of every 10 leads, you will get 1 order. If it's 1 of 100, you will get nothing, which means quite important measure. We usually measure 2 factors. 1, the ratio between the 2, that's the hit ratio, and second, the time it takes for an offer, for a lead, to traverse. It's wonderful if you are one of them, which means try to be monopoly and don't listen to the other people. They're jealous. They simply jealous, they want to be monopoly themselves. The first question we will ask, okay, what is the constraint? But before that, how many salesmen are in your companies? Let's start. In companies in which there is only one person dealing with sales, raise your hand. 2 people? Between 2 and 5? Bigger companies. 5 and 10, between 10 and let's say 50, 100 and more. Okay, no, that's the kind of distribution one should expect. Why you have more and more people? Because the number of accounts or leads they can deal with is limited, and when the company grows, the number of accounts grows, you need additional people. Of course, the question, what's the limit of dealing with different accounts, with different clients, is a good question. How much attention they need? How do you avoid what we call multitasking, or as a matter of fact, bad multitasking? How long is the sales cycle? Does it take one phone call? From today to tomorrow? 1 month? 1 year? All of them are possibilities. What's the size of the average deal? $10,000, $100,000, million, 10 millions? Depends what business you are. What's the typical hit ratio? I will give you an example from a real-life company. My co-author in the cash machine book, he was for many years leading sales of a large electronics company. Today he is heading this company. They had 40 people. Each one was covering about 30 accounts. They believe they can deal simultaneously with 7 different sales opportunities. It took them about a quarter, a little more, to close a deal. Average deal was a little under $1 million, and they had excellent hit ratio. Part of the reason they are the leading supplier in their area, and less than $1 million when you are equipping electronic plants worth hundreds of millions of dollars, it's not such a big deal, and you go for the safe, you go for the leader. That explains this very high hit ratio. What happens in the kind of companies you are dealing with, at which one person is dealing with sales? He's dealing quite often with large number of prospects, of leads, of accounts. He's trying to juggle at the same time as much as possible of open opportunities. How long it takes in this example, as you can see, 2.5 months. The big difference is here. That's why it's a small company. Average order is smaller by order of magnitude. Let's assume the hit ratio is quite similar. So what do we have? 1 salesperson, 10 ongoing opportunities, 75 days, 2.5, 50,000, which means they can make about $200,000 of sales in 75 days. It's about $250,000 in a quarter, about $1 million a year. Small business. Of course, they want to improve. There are many avenues to improve. You want more prospects. You know those people, how we define marketing? To make market. Know about you and do want you. Do marketing. You want to have a better ratio than 40%? I'm not sure if it's an art, maybe it's a science. Lisa, I don't know if you have noticed, but her company is called Science of Business. So maybe it is shorter sales cycle, higher efficiency, doing more with the same resources. How you do that? Because to increase the average deal, once again, has to do either you change your products, R&D, or with marketing. I would like to deal with this area. And I would like to present how TOC approach can improve that. To shorten the sales cycle, to increase its efficiency. An example. The example we use in our book are derived from real life. We had a real problem with production demonstration. Clients ask a lot of tough questions, which means you need a top specialist, experts, to be available, and they always feel the top expert, technical expert, to answer the question of clients, they feel like wasting their time. It was a constraint. They were not available. Everything that needed technical expert was a problem. How you exploit the constraint? I believe we haven't heard it yet, but this is the best way. Offload. Ask yourself the one question. Is this person doing only that? Or maybe this person is doing things other people can do. Maybe not as fast, maybe not as well. Offload means let them do only that. Everything else, bring other people, put it on the shoulders of other people, don't leave it there. Utilize how many hours there are a week. You remember, when I stay silent, you have to do
168.
How many hours are there a week?
168.
A week, not a day. How many?
168.
168. How many hours do you think out of these 168 hours we utilize?
40.
Pardon me?
40.
Which is less than 25%. What's the top you think we can do?
Choose less.
Pardon me?
Choose less. Not 40.
Avoid bad multitasking. Waste of time is horrible. What does it mean, subordinate? I will say a few words. What's PBR? Who read the book, The Goal? Raise your hands. Nereus must be very happy. The sales potential is huge in this room, which means all the people who didn't read it, so I will relate to it later. Elevator constraint, as I have said, if necessary, add resources, but don't fool yourself. A new constraint will pop out. And that's what really happened to us, and I won't dwell on this too much. The examples of multitasking. Ellen, thank you. You saved me now, so we will finish before time, because I also prepared some examples of that multitasking, which you can realize we had a problem of communication for this conference. Have I know that he's preparing such a nice example, I will leave my... If you have one single resources, if you are smart, you will finish your first project after 30 days, second one after 60 days, third one after 90 days. In reality, it's like that, and I will save you all this. Focus. Don't multitask. If there is one thing you will take home from this long day, we have a saying in Hebrew which basically says, you start something, finish it. That's what the heavens want you to do. You start something, finish it. Ellen even went for a paradox session. You want to finish something earlier, start it later. I concur. I agree with you. That's the best case scenario. In reality, it will be like that if you don't do that multitasking. And remember, in this example we are dealing with only 3 things you try to do at once. In reality, you're quite often dealing with 10. Lose, lose, lose. The hockey stick phenomenon, the huge jump in orders at the end of the season, be it month, quarter, or year. You have 3 months to do the sales. Why are you working like crazy in the last month? Why won't you start in the first day of the quarter working as hard? You know what the student syndrome is? For quite some time I was teaching in university. I am biochemist, biophysicist by training, which means I always saw management, economics. It's very boring until I started dealing with it. And I was used that, let's say, 2-3 weeks before the end of the semester, a delegation comes. The composition of it is always the same. The best student, male or female. The student with whom I have the best personal relationship, and when they enter into my room, even before they ask something, I say no. And they will tell me, we didn't say anything. And I start to explain, I know what you want. You want to tell me that my exam is falling just one day after or before some other exam, and they just want to ask you to postpone it for, let's say, 2 weeks. Yes, why not? So, you are quite young, so you should remember. When did you start learning for your exams at the university? No, I believe there are some people that the answer here, not everybody, last night. Let's say maybe last day, maybe 3 days before. Okay. Which means, what will happen if I postpone the exam? Will they learn more? Prepare? No. Which means, always say no. Let's think this way. And then they will go to another professor. I mean, they will find somebody. The cycles, they never end. They just, change. One day it's you, somebody else. Which means, why they don't start working as hard? Because there is a lot of time. Why work so hard? Second thing was also mentioned. You remember the numbers of the software? In the best case scenario, maybe 20% of the feature I use. But I don't believe in best case scenarios. 5%, 3%, I'm ready to believe. Now you ask yourself, how come there are so many features nobody needs? If they feel they have a lot of time, why not? But when you start something, you are not doing something else. You remember Alan was thinking about the dual problem. One is omission, not doing what's right, and the second commission, doing what nobody asks you to do. But think about it. The main reason people don't do what they have to do, because they are so busy doing things nobody asks them to. Hence the software. And of course, negotiation. I come to my boss because he told me he has a new task for me. And he says, you have to do that and that. You can finish it like 1 month. I tell you, you must be crazy. That's 3 months at least. That's if I work, you know. From dawn to dark. And let's say we negotiate, I have to finish in 2 months. Unfortunately, he was right. I finished it after 1 month. Will I tell him that I finished it after 1 month? By the way, if I tell him, he say, Alex, you saved my ass because all the other went so late. Great guy, will tell everybody, you see, all of you are late. How come Alex can do it before time? Will I tell him I finished? Because the reaction will be very positive. Will I tell him that I finished before the end of time? If you do some thinking, yes, he will pat you on your shoulder and he say, wonderful, but the next time, when he gives you, once again, he says 1 month, I tell him, you must be crazy, 3 months, please. He will tell me, you remember the previous time? Trust me. Which means nothing ends before time. Which means no matter how much time is given to any task, it will be wasted by these 3 very efficient mechanisms of wasting the time. By the way, I was working. Oh, there's also Fortman. How could I forget Mr. Murphy? Well, it's Major, as a matter of fact. He was serving in US Air Force at Murphy. You need some safety because shit happens. I mean, that's the shortest definition of Murphy law. And of course, there are many. Some people will say in the most inconvenient time, but between ourselves, is there a good time, convenient time for shit? Falling on your head? Never. So first we waste whatever safety we have. Then we have the measures. Hence the result. We work like crazy in the last moment. I believe it was in Ellen's presentation, we were talking about preparing a presentation, something you couldn't bring yourself to do in 3 weeks and then you finish it prior to the deadline in 2 hours. That's what we do with sales. However, in sales, you don't work with yourself. You work with a prospective client. You want him to say yes. What's the easiest way to cause the client who actually needs it to say yes? What do you do? The discount, he didn't ask for it. I mean, your starting position is already bad. Why? Because they measure you and you already missed your target the last period. You better this time do better. But there is also additional reason for this behavior. How does the financial community measure business? Every business. What they want to see. Remember, what's financial community? Those people who don't understand anything else but numbers. I mean, he can repair a bicycle, but not his day job. I mean, to put back the chain when it falls off the wheel. That's what I mean. They measure things on a quarterly basis. We want to look good. Every small company, I believe so, dreams about being even bigger company, even bigger than that. And one day they come under the microscope of the financial community. And all they want, show me your quarterly reports for the last, year, 2 years, 3 years. You want them to look good. So I need a good results. Do the people buying equipment know that towards the end of the equipment or service, do they know that towards the end of the season you will be much more flexible than you were in the beginning? Do they know it? Do they have the experience knowing when the quarter or the year is coming to the end, people are ready to give you discount just to close the deal? Do they know it? The buyers. Do you know what incentive plans are? If you meet your target, you are getting what you are getting. If you don't meet your target, you are put under question mark. If you are over the target, there is a bonus. I want the bonus. I will do everything in order to overcome the quota. I want to deal with this one. I want to deal with this one. Why all the salesman plans are done on a quarterly basis? I mean, the theory is measure them as they measure you, so the measures will fit. You want to have good results at the end of the quarter because the financial community demands it. I will put the same measures on my salesmen. They will do the effort. I want to deal with this one. Let's assume that in this company, by the way, those coming from small companies, what are your assumptions regarding 2014? Will you stay the same? Will you grow? Will you contract? What are your plans? I mean, it's now end of October, you are starting preparing. What are the plans for the next year? You will grow? Okay, once again, have I do all the exercise, raise your hand and so on. Yes. Or by how much? What's your basic assumption? By how much you will grow? How many percent? 30. Okay. 20. 50%. 60. 70. Let's go. But what would be the minimum? Something. What would be the absolute minimum of the growth? 10%. You remember we sold for 1 million? For the next year we prepare a plan for 1.1 million. What I expect? By the way, what happens after the big sales effort of the end of December? What happens in January? Nothing, yes. Okay, the first 10 days, so much drinking, so you really need to rest. And there, if there is a snow, that's the perfect time for vacation. I mean, so here is the plan for the 4 quarters of the next year. Quite a little in the first quarter, more in the second and the third, and the big bang in the third one. What a smart, that's the smart group, okay. You are all smart, so what a smart salesman is doing if he really wants the bonus. And there are very good reasons to want the bonus, because we just bought a house, a baby was born, we want to go to Italy in the summer, we have to change the car. I mean, there are excellent reasons why you want the bonus, and I agree with them. There are 2 ways to get the bonus. One, the not smart one. You work very hard in order to create more sales. Now the smart solution. We fight like crazy with the people setting the quota, your target. No, you still will be selling like crazy. But if the quota is low, your chances going above it and getting the bonus are much easier, correct? You are not salespeople, I see. Who has done it? No, you don't have to admit, because they are videotaping it, and then the boss may ask. But let's agree, it's not that aggressive. If it's not aggressive, all the phenomena we have mentioned, the student syndrome, which means at the beginning of January you are doing nothing, which means whoever is really smart is doing quite a lot of sales in January. Why? Because other people are not around. The competition is much lower. If you are not putting the effort, remember, the shorter the time you have then, the higher the chance of multitasking. And multitasking is always bad. And multitasking is being automatically translated each much longer sales cycle. What we propose is a solution derived from TOC solutions in all the areas TOC is dealing with, from project management, production management, supply chain management. I want to work with what we call buffer. I want that everybody will make sales equal every month. The target, $110 a month. By the way, $110,000 a month times 12 months gives you a figure 1.32. Which means if you really want to reach 1.1, you have here a buffer in the size of $220,000. We have a buffer. What do? Instead of measuring it at the end, I want every month this number. Quarter doesn't exist for me. Year doesn't. Every month. That forces them to work. I believe it doesn't make for harder work. No, I believe it's easier. It's just spread evenly over the time. From day one, January the 1st, look for business because you have a goal for a month. But remember, I know I put higher than expected, which means there's no punishment for not reaching the monthly target, because from the beginning I put a buffer on it. What I'm interested to sell as much possible in every year, It doesn't matter to me in which month, in which quarter. I just want to sell more. Not only in year, always. Which means, if I am seeing, he's consuming his buffer, like the graphs you have seen with Ellen, the project buffer is being consumed. Here, the sales buffer is being consumed. I want to start thinking in January and February, what's going on? What's that? A new competitor on the market? Our solution is obsolete now? We need additional people? What happened? But I don't want to add. Remember, if you went till the end of March, only in mid-April you discover there is a problem, it might be too late. And I am not negotiating with them. I put a target I believe is possible. I know it's aggressive, but I coach them. I don't want to use the word force them. But remember, that's what measures do. They force you to behave in a certain way. And I know what I want them to do. Not to work with those huge peaks, which by the way, ruin them, not only my sales, they ruin the people. They then, in the last 2 weeks of the quarter, they are not at home. I have to do something? Not yet. Is it a sign?
No, not yet.
Okay, thank you. I would like to use the terminology. I want to treat the process of sales, as if it was a production process, and I want to manage it. I don't want to teach anybody how to sell. I want to deal with how to organize the sales. Oh, sorry. What happens in the funnel is very much what happens in the production. That's the yield of manufacturing process. You start with 10 pieces of metal, and let's say there's 100 steps of processing, and you are losing due to defects, to errors, some of them. And the question, what's the yield? Out of the 100 pieces of metal that started away, how many reach and conform to norms at the end? 99? 50? 25? By the way, in the chip production, in the microelectronic, what do you think is the yield of the process? When you put those pieces of silicon, how many of them will finish as a good working chips? Give me a number, percent. Pardon me? I don't hear you. Between 10 to 25, which means that's the yield of the process. And 25, it's okay. It's really okay. What's the lead time of the process? I'm using terminology of production. But I won't even go beyond it. I don't want to look at his sales is an island in the company. It's not an island. Sales is one of the is a part of the organization dealing with sales. They don't make money because if they do the sales and I don't have the merchandise to provide it, we are not making money, even if the sales was done. Which means giving the salesmen their bonuses before we actually see the money from the clients. I mean, one of the biggest mistakes of organization, but that's what's being done. Let's look from the moment We see or we hear about the prospect for the first time until we have the money in the bank. And sales is just one step in this road. First is marketing. Throwing the seeds of corn along the banks of the river. Inciting interest. You know, some people don't know what they have to, what they need to want. We teach them what they have to want. We generate leads. Only then they go to the sales. And we have seen the long process that they begin there. But at closing, nothing happens to our bank account. Why? Because we have to supply the goods. As long as we haven't done it, even if we have a contract, nothing really happens. So first somebody is looking. Have you heard this saying from salesmen? I never have seen an order I don't like. No? But that's how they think. Every order is okay if it helps to reach the quota and then the bonus level. But somebody has to look. Maybe they promise things we cannot provide. Which means somebody is doing some basic checks. Can we really provide it to the client? Somebody has to approve it. Now, we have to prepare the goods in question. Be it service, instrument, equipment, machine, material, whatever. Then, if it's physical goods, or if it's software, it should be installed at the client. Oh, sorry. It's just notifying the client after 2 years the ship is coming. So actually, have you finished building the port, the harbor, so it can arrive there? Shipping, and then once it's at the hands of the client, finance is doing the funny thing, which is invoicing, but customer support, they still don't transfer the money. You have to install it, connect it, network it, be sure that it actually works, to teach the client how to use. Ellen was talking about, in Lithuania you say SAP or SAP for the ERP company. You say SAP or SAP? SAP. Okay. So we told you about SAP projects which takes years and cost millions or hundreds of millions. But the idea is what we call handover. At one point, the external experts are going out and the client's people take over, which means you have to do customer training, you have to be sure that it works in their hand, and then, only then, you can collect the cash. There are a few things we have learned the hard way. If you want a good advice for you, if you are thinking about doing those things. One is, don't let what we call approval system to stop the process. If for every step a salesman people are doing, they need somebody's signature, the cycle will go as long as possible, or even longer than that. However, you should understand the problem. You want to run an efficient sales organization, which means you must be sure they don't waste money, time, and effort. How do you block unnecessary expenses, time, or effort? Oh, sorry. On the other hand, you want to be sure it's running as fast as possible. However, in order to make sure that at any steps no money is being wasted, you need what we call in-process cost control measure, which means you want to spend 5 cents, somebody has to sign it, and then somebody else has to co-sign it. You have such a process in company that an every expense somebody has to sign, and the bigger the company, the longer the process. On the other side, if you want to work fast, be sure that nothing like that. Let them run. If we do controls, we'll do them later. And the question is, what to do? What you see here is a presentation of particular kind of conflict. It's a dilemma. You want efficient self-operation? Don't let the controls stop the process. Kill it. We always have time. People are not stupid. Even if we are checking after fact, they know if we discover it, they will pay a price for it. They are not stupid. I'm not saying don't control. Don't let it stop the process. Second thing is to do with different problems. Some companies are in the business we call NPD, New Product Development. By the way, by saying product, software is a product, service is a product, something to be sold. And there are some markets at which there is, from the client side, at least the feeling, the belief, the faster, the newer, the better. Here is different. You want to beat competition, overcome losses. I mean, maybe your old projects are losing its appeal, its attraction. So, you know what? But you don't. But you want to be sure that when you introduce something to the market, it works. In order to beat competition, as soon as possible, you have something, throw it to the market. Be the first to put the market. In order to be sure that it works, do it only after you do all your tests and procedures. And once again, a dilemma. Life has taught us a very tough lesson. I mean, I'm talking only about mistakes at which I was personally involved. I mean, probably much more mistakes we can do. But this might be critical. You don't launch as early. You must be sure it works. You launch early, it doesn't work. The word of the mouth, it doesn't work. All your effort was in vain. And few lessons we have learned. Learning from different areas. From production, from projects, from supply chain. You need optimum in a system in only one point, at the constraint. The fact that you have very efficient operations which are not constrained means only one thing. You put an effort, you paid for it, you got nothing in return. We had an example in the sales. We believe the faster we react to our clients, of course, we sell more. It turned out it didn't help us a lot. The constraint was in different point. And talking about constraint, you know, of course, all of you, the Pareto rule, the 20-80 principle. Does it work always? Probably yes. For example, let's say you and me are in the business of purchase. You purchase the raw materials for 10 million euros a year. I purchase toiletries, the paper, and soap and so on, for 100,000 euros a year. The boss said, we must save on expenses, cut our costs. This guy is not that successful. He only saved 10%. And now instead of 10 million, pay only 9 million. I was much more successful. I cut 50%. And instead of 100,000, we pay 50. What's the gain from the company? Well, together is 1,050,000. However, I hope all of you realize it much more makes sense to try to make additional percent here than another 20% here. Which means, what the 20-80 principally say? 20% of factors influence 80% of the outcome, of the result. Is it? In a chain of 1,000 links, which of the following statements is correct? In a chain of 1,000 links, 20% of the links determine 80% of the strength. Or, second statement, one single link determines the entire strength of the chain. Statement 1 or statement 2? What happened? What happened to Pareto principle? How come? Pareto was a mathematician and he knew what he's talking about. Pareto principle applies only to independent phenomena. Do you think that making money in organization is a sum of independent phenomena or dependent phenomena? It's dependent. Find the one link, which means the question, what is the constraint, is crucial. What does it mean, drum buffer roll, for those of you who didn't read the goal? I strongly advise you. Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, lately asked his top managers to read only 3 books. The number of details Amazon is selling is about 10 million, half of them books. And I guess, I'm not sure, but probably even don't pay for the books, but that's between you and me. But he asked them to read only 3 books. And after that, on each book, they spent in some remote place a whole day discussing it. The first 2 are the standard staple of management. Peter Drucker on organization and Klarman on innovation. But the 3rd book was very surprising because it was about production. The goal by Goldberg. And the funny thing is, he says, the most discussion and reactions and ideas came from talking about the book, which is not even a theoretical book. It's a love story in production management. It's different kind of a book. It's a novel. Not big literature, but those who, from the people who read the goal, how long it took you to finish reading it? How long it took from cover to cover?
2 days.
Okay, you're a slow reader. Because you cannot really, people will read half of the night until they finish it. What's a drum buffer roll? Basically, drum is the device, the part part of the systems. It's called drum. Have you seen, you know, a big parade and one small drummer setting the pace for 10,000 people, the pace at which all the marching, which means drum is how fast you release material to production. The answer, the pace of the bottleneck. The buffer, what it is? Thank you, Ellen. You told them. You always want, before you bottleneck, some material waiting for it. It's the buffer. So it never stopped working, even if the machine spinning it got broken or something went wrong. And what's wrong? Road is mechanism saying, bottleneck stopped, everything has to stop, because it dictates the throughput of the entire system. You constrain the drum, you define what's the quantity you can deal, and you don't touch. In prospects, you know, you just be wasting. What else? Once again, Ellen was talking about the setups. You can do as much as you want. Okay, I will go to the main problem in the sales. Who are the sales manager? Salesmen. How they become sales managers? They were very good at sales. Does it automatically mean they know how to manage sales? I'm afraid not. As long as their focus is on the sales instead of realizing it's an operation that should be run as an operation, they are not doing the right thing. Instead of focusing on what's important, seeing the entire process, identifying the constraint, exploiting it and subordinating, they focus on what? On sales. You have a difficult client, I will come with you. Wrong. Because at the time he's dealing with a difficult client, he's not doing what he was also supposed to do, to see the entire operation. There's no systematic methodology to improve the sales operation unless you realize it's a process like any other process. They think they're isolated island, and usually it's true. They wear suits while everybody is going in jeans. They have a clothes allowance. When they fly to US, they got to fly business class because, you know, in the morning he's having a meeting, so how can he? They're not an island. Both of those statements are mistaken. It's an operation, it should be run like that. And you are just a part of the system.